Alex Eala was ranked 153 in the world, standing inside a tunnel at Flushing Meadows with her racket bag over her shoulder, and she had just lost the match that was supposed to change everything. August 2024. The final round of US Open qualifying. One win from her first Grand Slam main draw. She had taken the first set 6-3 against Elena-Gabriela Ruse, a 26-year-old Romanian ranked 31 places above her, and it looked like the door was swinging open. Then the second set happened. Ruse ripped through it 6-1. Eala needed a medical timeout. And in the decider, tied at 3-all, Ruse found another gear while Eala could not find hers. 6-4 Ruse. The Romanian walked into the US Open main draw. The Filipino walked into a parking lot in Queens and tried to figure out what had gone wrong. 2 years later, Alex Eala is the 20th ranked player on Earth. She owns a WTA 500 title. She has beaten Iga Swiatek on center court at Wimbledon. She has 7 victories over top 10 opponents in a single season, a number that ties her with Elena Rybakina and Alina Svitolina for the most on tour. And on August 15th, inside the Lindner Family Tennis Center in Mason, Ohio, she will walk onto Tony Trabert Stadium 3 as the 17th seed at the Cincinnati Open and look across the net at the same woman who shut the door on her 2 summers ago. If you really love Alex Eala, then comment now Eala 100%. This is not the same matchup. It is not even close. But the memory of that night in New York has a texture to it that rankings cannot dissolve, and that is precisely what makes this second-round meeting worth examining in granular detail. Start with what Ruse actually did in that 2024 qualifying match, because it matters. The Romanian did not simply outlast a teenager. She diagnosed a pattern mid-match and exploited it. In the first set, Eala was dictating with her forehand, taking the ball early, redirecting pace from the left side of the court with the kind of flat, driving strokes that hard courts reward. She looked like the better player. She was the better player for 40 minutes. But Ruse noticed something. Eala's serve was not punishing her. The first serve percentage was decent, but the pace was moderate, and Ruse was getting comfortable reads on the placement. So Ruse stopped giving away cheap errors on return, extended rallies, and turned the match into a physical contest rather than a ball-striking contest. The second set was a demolition because Eala did not have a plan B. When her forehand stopped producing outright winners against a player who was now standing 2 feet behind the baseline and retrieving everything, she started pressing. She went for too much. Unforced errors piled up. The medical timeout in the second set compounded the psychological damage. By the time they reached 3-all in the third, Ruse had all the momentum and Eala had nothing left in reserve. That blueprint is important because it exposes the specific weakness Ruse was able to target. And it raises a question that makes this Cincinnati rematch genuinely fascinating. Has the weakness been fixed? The answer, based on 12 months of evidence, is complicated. Alex Eala's serve has improved. The raw numbers confirm it. In 2024, she hit 4 aces across her entire season. 4. In 2025, that jumped to 23. In 2026, through mid-August, she has 56 aces and counting. Her service points won percentage rose from 47.8% in 2024 to 59.4% in 2025 and sits at 56.4% this year. The serve is no longer the glaring liability it was when Ruse picked it apart in New York. It has evolved from a placeholder into something functional, sometimes even dangerous. But functional and dominant are different things. Linda Noskova has beaten Eala twice in 2026, 6-2, 6-0 at Indian Wells and 6-2, 6-4 in the Berlin semifinals, and in both matches the serve was a factor. Belinda Bencic dismantled her 6-4, 6-0 in Toronto just days ago. When Eala faces opponents who can neutralize her ground strokes and apply sustained return pressure, the serve still comes under scrutiny. The question is whether Ruse, at her current level, is capable of applying that kind of pressure in 2026. Let us look at where Elena-Gabriela Ruse actually stands right now. She is 28 years old, ranked somewhere between 71 and 77 depending on which week you check, and she has posted a 22-18 record this season. That record hides some genuinely impressive moments. At the Australian Open in January, she beat 26th seed Diana Yastremska and Ajla Tomiljanovic to reach the third round before losing to Mira Andreeva. At the Linz Open in April, she made the semi-finals, beating Yelena Ostapenko along the way. And on grass, she has been particularly dangerous. At the Rosmalen Open, she beat Elise Mertens, the woman who defeated her in the 2025 final at the same tournament, before falling to Barbara Krejcikova in the quarterfinals. At Bad Homburg, she came through qualifying, stunned 10th-ranked Linda Noskova in the first round, upset Emma Navarro, and reached the semifinals before losing to eventual champion Karolina Machova. That Bad Homburg run is worth lingering on because it tells you something about Ruse that the ranking does not. She is a player who can, on the right day, beat top 10 opponents. She has 3 career wins over players ranked inside the top 10 at the time of the match. Badosa in Dubai in 2022. Krejcikova at the US Open in 2024. Noskova at Bad Homburg just weeks ago. She is not intimidated by names. She is not intimidated by occasions. And she walked into her Cincinnati first-round match against Magda Linette and produced a 6-0, 6-3 scoreline that suggests she is arriving in Mason with her game in order. But here is where the analysis pivots. Because everything Ruse has done well in 2026, she has done primarily on clay and grass. Her hard court record this season is 3-7. 3 wins, 7 losses. That is strikingly poor. At Indian Wells, she lost in the first round. At the Miami Open, she fell in the second round. At Dubai, she lost in the first round. The surface that Eala grew up on, the surface where Eala has produced virtually every signature result of her career, is the surface where Ruse has struggled most consistently. And Eala's hard court form in 2026 is not just good. It is historic. Her record on North American hard courts this summer stands at 7-1. She has beaten Zheng Qinwen, Leylah Fernandez, Alina Svitolina, Naomi Osaka, and Jessica Pegula in the span of a single week in Washington. She has beaten Alicia Parks and Katie McNally in Toronto. The Bensick loss is the only blemish, and even that came after a grueling 3-set win over McNally the day before that included an ankle scare. She is playing the best tennis of her life on the surface where this match will take place. So the macro picture looks clear. Eala is the higher-ranked player by nearly 60 places. She is the seeded player with a bye. She is on her preferred surface while Ruse is on her worst one. The 2-year gap between their meetings has seen Eala's ranking go from 153 to 20, while Ruse's has moved from 122 to 77. By every conventional measure, Eala should win this match. But sport is not a ledger, and this is where it gets interesting. Ruse possesses a specific set of tools that could trouble Eala if deployed correctly. She is a left court player with a 2-handed backhand that she can flatten or loop depending on the tactical need. Her best tennis involves absorbing pace, extending rallies, and waiting for openings rather than creating them through raw power. On paper, that sounds like a nightmare matchup for Eala, whose entire game is built on creating pace and dictating with early ball striking. If Ruse can replicate what she did in that 2024 qualifying match, if she can slow the tempo, absorb the forehand, extend rallies past 7 or 8 shots, and turn the contest into an endurance test, she has a path. The problem for Ruse is that Eala in August 2026 is not Eala in August 2024. The physical difference alone is significant. In 2024, Eala was a 19-year-old who had spent most of her season on the ITF circuit. Her biggest title was a W100 event in Spain. Her body was not conditioned for 3-set battles against experienced WTA-level opponents. In 2026, she has played 37 tour-level matches. She has gone deep in WTA 1000 events at Indian Wells, Miami, and Toronto. She has survived a 3-set rain-delayed final against the 3rd-ranked player in the world and come out the other side holding a trophy. The endurance gap that Ruse exploited 2 years ago may simply no longer exist. And then there is the mental dimension, which is arguably the most important factor in this match. Since the start of her Washington title run, Alex Eala has beaten every former conqueror she has faced. 7 consecutive wins against opponents who had previously defeated her. Renata Zarazua at Wimbledon. Maya Joint at Wimbledon. Iga Swiatek at Wimbledon. Zheng Qinwen in Washington. Leylah Fernandez in Washington. Jessica Pegula in Washington. Alicia Parks in Toronto. 7 players who once had her number. 7 debts paid. There is a pattern here that goes beyond coincidence and enters the territory of competitive psychology. Eala has internalized the idea that she can rewrite the ledger. She actively seeks out the ghosts and banishes them. Ruse is the next ghost on the list. Consider what it took to beat Swiatek at Wimbledon. Center court. The defending champion. A tiebreak in the first set that went to 11-9. Eala saved set points, converted her own, and then ran away with the second set 6-2. That performance revealed something about her competitive identity that the rankings already reflected, but the doubters had not yet accepted. She does not shrink on big stages against big names. She inflates. The bigger the moment, the more dangerous she becomes. And walking out against Ruse carrying the memory of that 2024 loss in front of a Cincinnati crowd that will almost certainly include a vocal Filipino contingent, on the surface where she just won her first career title, she will be carrying enough emotional fuel to power a rocket. Now, the honest counterargument. Eala is not fresh. She played 3 matches in Toronto last week, including that bruising 3-setter against McNally where she tweaked her ankle. She is playing her second consecutive WTA 1000 event. The Washington title run before that was 5 matches in 8 days, with a rain delay that stretched the final across 2 calendar days. The cumulative load since late July is enormous. And Ruse, who played only 1 match in Cincinnati's first round against a clearly outmatched Lynette, arrives physically fresher. If this match goes to 3 sets, Eala's legs may have less to give than her mind demands. That is a real concern, not a hypothetical one. There is also the tactical wrinkle of Ruse's doubles pedigree. She has been a top 35 doubles player, reaching the semifinals at both the Australian Open and French Open in doubles. She reached the quarterfinals at the US Open doubles. Her net instincts are sharp, her volleying is confident, and she understands angles in a way that pure baseliners often do not. If Ruse decides to mix up her approach, come forward on short balls, and disrupt Eala's rhythm with variety rather than trying to outgrind her from the baseline, she could create discomfort. Eala's passing shots are effective, but she is most comfortable when she can settle into baseline exchanges and dictate with her forehand. Anything that pulls her out of that pattern introduces volatility. But probability leans heavily in one direction here, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. Eala on hard courts in August 2026, seeded, rested by a first-round bye, riding the momentum of a title and a deep run in consecutive tournaments, facing an opponent ranked 50-plus places below her on the opponent's weakest surface, is a substantial favorite. The ranking says it. The surface data says it. The recent form says it. The head-to-head is 1 match played in completely different circumstances 2 years ago, and extrapolating from that single data point while ignoring everything that has changed since would be analytically lazy. What makes this match worth watching, though, is not the probable outcome. It is the subtext. For Eala, this is the last remaining piece of unfinished business from her apprenticeship years. She has beaten Swiatek, who dismissed her in Madrid in 2025. She has beaten Pegula, who ended her dream run in Miami. She has beaten Zheng, Fernandez, Parks, Joint, Zarazua, every player who once stood in her way and won. Ruse is the final name on a list that reads like a coming-of-age novel written in match scores. The Romanian is the woman who stood between Alex Eala and her first Grand Slam main draw, and now she stands between Eala and the 3rd round of a WTA 1000 event in the final tune-up before the US Open. The symmetry is almost too neat. For Ruse, the equation is simpler but no less urgent. She is 28. Her ranking has never been higher than 51. She is not in decline exactly, but she is not ascending either. She is a solid, professional, sometimes brilliant player who knows how to compete at the highest level without ever having established permanent residence there. A win over the 20th ranked player in the world, a player she has beaten before, would be the kind of result that can reshape a season. It would earn her a potential third-round meeting with 9th seed Amanda Anisimova or Zeynep Sönmez. It would remind the tour that she is more than a doubles specialist with occasional singles flashes. The Cincinnati Open has always functioned as the final stress test before the US Open. The field is deep, the conditions are demanding, and the results here tend to reveal which players are peaking at the right time and which are running on fumes. For Eala, a comfortable win over Ruse would confirm that the machine is still humming despite the accumulated mileage. A scrappy three-set battle would raise questions about fatigue without necessarily answering them. And a loss, while unlikely, would send shockwaves through a fanbase that has spent the last 3 weeks convinced their player is destined for a deep US Open run. The match will be played on an outdoor hard court in the Ohio heat. Eala will walk onto that court knowing exactly who she is. Ruse will walk onto it knowing exactly what she did 2 years ago. Both memories will be present. Both will matter. But only one of them reflects the current reality. 2 years is a long time in tennis. Rankings change. Bodies change. Confidence shifts from one locker room to another. In August 2024, Elena-Gabriela Ruse was the gatekeeper who turned Alex Eala away from a Grand Slam. In August 2026, the gatekeeper finds herself on the wrong side of a very different door, and the woman knocking has spent the last 12 months proving she does not knock twice.